Part 5. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 41. Gu Weishan's analysis made the atmosphere in the immortal palace cool down. Many saints and saints had complicated expressions. They wanted to say something, but they didn't know how to refute. But the glimmer of hope that originally arose in their hearts was gradually extinguished because of God Gu Wei's words. Has there ever been an ancient emperor in the human race who could rival the ancient emperor, even if it was only a long time ago? The answer to this question is really important. It is not only about the peak combat power of the human race, but also involves many other aspects. If the human race once had an emperor, how many people would be strengthened in their Taoist aspirations? How many human monks will it inspire and feel inspired by? The existence of the ancient emperor is like a beacon in the long dark night of the human race, able to light the fire of hope for the human race and point the way forward. It is conceivable that if an emperor really appears in the human race, many saints and saints in this fairy palace will probably be in high spirits. The Taoist heart will also become firm because of this, and will no longer think that the blood of the human race is inferior to the ancient races, and may be able to climb to a higher realm in the future. But what if the human race has no emperor? The quasi-emperor is the pinnacle. After a lifetime of practice, he cannot advance to the extreme realm. His bloodline is not as good as that of all ancient races. This will greatly frustrate the cultivation of the human monks and produce inestimable bad effects. God Gu Wei, even though there are good reasons for what you said, I still don't believe it. If the person leading all of this is really my quasi-emperor of the human race, why would he do this? Cultivation has reached this level. Even if you don't join the Supreme Dao, in this era when there is no emperor in the world, you are still the supreme existence in the world. Telling such a huge lie, doesn't it damage the reputation of the quasi-emperor? A saint's son was unwilling to accept it and retorted through gritted teeth. As we all know, your celestial god sect has good relations with the ancient tribes, and its teachings do not respect the strong human beings, but respect the illusory ancient gods. I see that by doing this, you clearly want to harm the Taoist heart of our human race, and your heart is worth punishing. The Holy Son's retort shook the spirits of everyone in the immortal palace. Thinking of the foundation of the Tiantian sect, everyone felt that Gu Weishan's words might contain evil intentions. The Tiantian sect has been established for less than 10,000 years, and it is not the same as the Tiantian section compared with many ancient inheritances of the human race in the eastern wasteland. The history is short. Moreover, the teachings of this religion are strange. They do not respect the strong men born in the history of the human race, but respect the illusory and extremely mysterious gods from outside the territory. Those who teach the religion worship the gods day and night. Furthermore, the sect believes that the inability of the human race to give birth to the ultimate existence is a problem of the human race's bloodline itself. This has been confirmed in hundreds of thousands of years of ancient times. The sect advocates that we should have good relations with all the ancient races. Give up some barren lands and unimportant human races. Even intermarry with groups of ancient creatures similar in size to the human race, assimilate and change the human race's bloodline. In this way, the human race will not only be able to give birth to existences in the extreme realm, but also gradually change their own bloodline. Completely turn the human race into a part of the ancient races. This kind of behavior is no different from the secular ancient country, which has to surrender to the enemy country because of its weakness, or even surrender the whole country. In the ancient times, hundreds of thousands of years of blood and tears, various races oppress the human race, and most of the sects in the eastern wasteland will naturally not agree with the teachings of this celestial sect. However, the sect still has many followers. Most of the people who join the sect are young humans. They have not having experienced the history of the human race that was full of blood and tears. We were lucky enough not to have been oppressed by the ancient races. Therefore, in the hearts of most of the celestial sect members, the ancient race was not that evil. The human race had good relations with the ancient race, and even raised the best choices to assimilate the clan and gradually incorporate yourself into the ancient clans. Haha, everyone. Does it make sense to be tough? In the view of the supreme leader, this old quasi-emperor of the human race, it is precisely because his cultivation has reached this level that he clearly knows that for the human race, the quasi-emperor level is the pinnacle, and it is impossible to move forward one step further. This old quasi-emperor must have already been in despair, even disheartened. But this old quasi-emperor knows that this kind of news cannot be known to the entire human race, otherwise it will make the human race truly desperate. He probably did this because he wanted to make some contribution to the human race at the last moment of his life and leave some seeds of hope for the human race so that he would not despair about the future. But as everyone knows, this kind of illusory hope will only harm the human race, make them blindly arrogant, and ultimately suffer greater damage. In the face of everyone's doubts, God Gyue did not panic at all and still talked eloquently. Therefore, for me, the human race, the most important thing now is to understand the situation clearly, rather than blindly advocating about the non-existent ancient emperor. This will do a lot of harm to our human race but no benefit at all. The recent major events in the Eastern Barren Territory, the so-called human emperor and the Great Holy Body, none of these exist, they are all a trap set up by an old quasi-emperor of the human race before his death. The human race should serve the ancient 10,000 races carefully, and rather than being blindly arrogant, this is what God Gyue wants to convey to everyone in the Immortal Palace. Deep in the Immortal Palace, within the most magnificent heavenly palace, 6 figures stand here. Every figure is extremely powerful, and the whole body is shrouded in a brilliant divine ring, making it difficult to see through the true appearance. Every figure is like an immortal divine furnace, with blood like the sea, almost boiling, and divine power surging like Wan Yang. If there are monks who are proficient in the art of looking for energy here, they will definitely be shocked to find out. Above the heads of these 6 figures, each has a dragon-like pillar of energy and blood, rising from their heavenly spirit caps and penetrating the world. These 6 unparalleled figures gathered in Shenyang City this time. The supreme leader of the powerful human forces in the 6 directions. However, the atmosphere in Tianq was very quiet at this moment, and no one showed any joy. And all of this is naturally because the leader of the Tianchen sect just said words like Gu Weishan. Everything may be a trap set by an old quasi-emperor who is about to die in the human race. Originally, all the masters and masters gathered here, and they felt a little happy in their hearts. After all, what happened in the eastern wasteland these days are all related to the human race, and they vaguely point to a news that makes everyone excited and happy. The human race has an emperor. But now, the inference made by the supreme leader of the celestial god sect is like a bucket of cold water being poured down on their heads, causing everyone's joy to disappear and their hearts to feel cold. After a long time, in the ancient palace, a supreme leader spoke. His voice was vicissitudes of life and a little confused. I thought this would be the beginning of the excitement of our human race, but who knew that everything might just turn out to be a mirror image? Sages of the human race, can you explain this to me? Where is the path forward for our human race? Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 42. Don't rush to a conclusion, everything has not been determined yet, and what the leader of the Tianchen sect said is just his guess. A holy lord spoke, breaking the silence. If the human race really has no emperor and everything is just a scam, then it would be meaningless for them to gather here. The human race will return to the eternal night that will never see the light. I don't know when. Only then will hope come. Haha, although it is just a guess, I estimate that 9 times out of 10, it will be true. The leader of the celestial god sect shook his head, his voice rumbled. It all happened by chance. First, traces of the Empress manifested one after another, and then the so-called Great Saint appeared, shocking the eastern wasteland. In just less than a month, our human race has had so many supreme beings from millions of years ago appear. Don't you think it's a bit ridiculous? In my opinion, the old quasi-emperor of my human race has very little time left, so he is so eager to deploy all these methods. It's a pity that haste makes waste, and being so urgent makes people suspicious. At this moment, outside the heavenly palace, Qin Mu stood silently, and he could hear all the conversations in the heavenly palace clearly. Now that he has cultivated to the realm of the Holy Lord, he is also assisted by the heavenly escape earth shadowless scripture. So entering here is like entering an uninhabited land. No one can discover his whereabouts, not even the 6 supreme leaders are aware of it. The words of the supreme leader of the heavenly God sect can't help but prohibit. Qin Mu was speechless. Was everything arranged by an old quasi-emperor of the human race who had run out of longevity and was on the verge of death? Are the Empress and the Dachan holy body fake? Qin Mu didn't expect that this guy's brain power was so strong. And everything is so reasonable and well-founded that it is impossible to refute it. However, his 5th secret realm has been arranged. When the secret realm comes into being, all suspicions and inferences will be self-defeating. Just when Qin Mu was about to continue listening, outside the heavenly palace, there was a powerful aura that shook the heavens and the earth, like a living ancient ancestor king, descending into the world. This fleeting powerful aura instantly attracted the attention of the 6 figures in the immortal palace. He rushed out of the immortal palace and stood in the sky, looking towards the direction where the breath came from, his eyes full of surprise and uncertainty. Where is the person in charge of the human race? I am here on the orders of the king and ancestor, and with the decree of the king and ancestor. Why don't you, human race, come and meet me soon? Outside the immortal palace, a creature from the ancient clan spoke, and the sound shook the 10 directions, echoing in the immortal palace. Outside the immortal palace, there was a black tiger standing, its body as black as ink, tens of meters long, exuding incomparable ferocity. Aura. And above his head, there was a scroll of law rising and falling, with divine light shining brightly, and the aura of the ancient ancestor king contained on it, shaking the heaven and earth. The decree of the ancient king? The supreme masters looked at each other, their expressions on their faces. It's a little ugly. At this time, it might not be a good thing for an ancient creature to arrive with the ancient king's decree. The black tiger's voice was loud, and the king's decree above his head was also glowing, without covering his aura. So except for the 6 masters, many monks in the immortal palace also noticed the changes here, and walked out of the immortal palace one after another, casting their sights in the direction of the black tiger. My human race is discussing things. I wonder what the Minghu clan wants to do now that they are here. The 6 supreme leaders came together and landed in front of the black tiger. One of them said lightly, "The Minghu clan is the ancient ethnic group to which this black tiger belongs. My coming here this time is not just based on the decree of the royal ancestor of my clan." The black giant tiger's eyes were like copper bells, and his voice was fierce. After his words fell, the decree above his head began to glow, and a series of obscure auras fluctuated, and 5 completely different auras flashed away. 5 ancient kings. A supreme human race leader noticed the 5 completely different auras contained in the decree. His body couldn't help but trembled, and his face was stern. The decree issued by the 5 ancient kings together? The ancient king's decree has arrived, but the human race still doesn't accept it. Seeing the awe-inspiring expressions on everyone's faces, the giant black tiger became even more rampant, speaking nakedly, and directly asked the human race to accept the order by name. Even if the 5 ancient kings issued decrees, what would they have to do with our human race? A supreme leader of the human race snorted coldly, his voice a bit sullen. The ancient king issued a decree, but the human race wanted to accept it. Doesn't this put themselves in the position of slaves and servants? How could they accept this decree? If it is accepted, the backbone of the human race in the eastern wasteland will be completely interrupted. Do the human race want to go against the will of the royal ancestors? If the human race refuses to comply with the decree, it will be a disgrace to the princes and ancestors, and the consequences will be unpredictable. The giant black tiger opened his mouth, his voice full of threats. I really want to know who is the prince who dares to risk the disapproval of the world like this. A few days ago, the supreme existence of my human race appeared in this world. Can't it make all the ancestors and kings awe? A supreme leader couldn't help but said. Supreme being. Haihu shook his head, full of disdain. Are you really taking this seriously? The princes and ancestors have already discussed it, and the bloodline of the ancient queens has given guidance. The person named is not a supreme being, but a quasi-emperor on the verge of transformation. How dare he pretend to be an emperor? Black Tiger's words were earth-shattering and shocking. In the immortal palace, the bodies of many human races were shaken. No one expected that the ancient race had come to such an inference, and it was almost the same as the inference obtained by the celestial god section together. With the two-phase confirmation, that is to say, is it true that the human race has never had a Jideo existence, and has never given birth to an emperor? Everything is just a trap laid out by an old quasi-emperor before his death? In the immortal palace, the atmosphere, the expressions of the human race were solemn and complicated. But the giant black tiger had an arrogant expression. It had the royal decree on its head and was about to speak again, forcing the human race to accept the decree. However, at this moment, outside the Lianxian palace, there was a human monk, carrying an ancient steel on his back, staggering over. This human monk was covered in blood, his breath was erratic, and he was carrying a towering ancient steel behind him that was as tall as several people. However, although his body was stained with blood, but his eyes were very bright, and he could even see the unparalleled excitement contained in it. He carried the ancient steel forward, and finally came to the immortal palace, roaring with all his strength. Thousands of miles away from the holy city, traces of the ancient emperor appear. Our human race, it turns out there really is an emperor. There is an emperor. The roaring tone of the human monk was full of ecstasy. It was enough to show how excited he was at this moment. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 43. The human monk roared loudly, the joy in his words was beyond words. Even though his body was stained with blood and even dirt, he still felt the joy and shock from his heart. It's Lu Ziyi. I am a monk from Tianshu Holy Land. A holy son spoke in surprise and revealed the identity of the human monk who came with the ancient monument on his back. Countless eyes on the sky tower were focused on the monk named Lu Ziyi. Because of what he just said, it's really too eye-catching. There are traces of the ancient emperor, there is an emperor in the human race. Did he find something? Also, what is the ancient steel that he carried on his back? How could the human race have an emperor? Wang Ziyu once said that it is impossible for the human race to have a supreme emperor, so don't talk nonsense. The black giant tiger scolded, with an angry tone and an ugly look. He came with the decree of the king and ancestors. He just said that the human race has no emperor, and everything is just a scam. Now there is a human monk shouting that traces of the ancient emperor have appeared, and the human race has an emperor. This aren't you slapping him in the face and the faces of the ancient kings behind him? Lu Ziyi, don't panic, tell me your experience in detail. The supreme headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land took action, brought Lu Ziyi to the six of them, and said in a friendly manner. Lu Ziyi was originally an inconspicuous monk disciple of Tianshu Holy Land. This time he followed him to the holy city and even entered the immortal palace. He has no qualifications. Therefore, now being watched by the supreme leader of the six forces of the human race, he felt trembling in his heart and under great pressure. He couldn't help but swallowed. However, after calming down, he still told his experience. Reporting back to the Supreme Leader, the thing is like this. A few days ago, when the disciple first came to Shenyang city, he met an old Taoist outside the city. He said that there was a great blessing coming to his disciples. At first, the disciples did not believe it. As Lu Ziyi told the story, the whole story was gradually revealed to everyone. It turned out that after receiving this infinitely valuable treasure map from Duan Yun's Hung, Lu Ziyi immediately set off towards the place marked on the treasure map. At first, after arriving at his destination, Lu Ziyi felt excited and felt that a huge opportunity was waiting for him. However, when he was here, he found two monks who were also holding priceless ancient scrolls. The two people looked annoyed and claimed that they had been deceived by an old Taoist priest and came here. The so-called priceless ancient scrolls are simply a scam, and there must be no treasures here. Only then did Lu Ziyi realize that he had been deceived. Frustrated, he was about to leave. But he was a little unwilling to do so. After all, the terrain recorded in this ancient scroll is exactly the same as here, which is quite extraordinary. What if there really is some chance treasure? With the idea of giving it a try, Lu Ziyi went alone to the majestic sacred mountain in the center surrounded by thousands of mountains. But when he left, Lu Ziyi was shocked. Because there is something really strange on the sacred mountain. The foot of the mountain glows brightly and brilliantly, as if there is an ancient cave floating there. Lu Ziyi quickly arrived there, only to find it was an abandoned source mine entrance. The ancient mine has been around for thousands of years and is full of traces of time. The mine tunnels are also blocked by huge boulders. And that superb divine light emanates from the gaps in the boulders. Lu Ziyi was overjoyed and quickly moved the boulder away, hoping to re-excavate the mine tunnel and find the source of the divine light. As a result, before the source of the divine light was found, he dug up an ancient monument. The ancient stele is as tall as several people, majestic, and even has the breath of vicissitudes of time flowing on it. At a glance, you can see its extraordinary features. This ancient stele was erected here so many years ago, and the surface of the ancient stele is already covered with dust. At the same time, a ray of supreme aura that could shock the heavens and the earth seemed to overflow from the depths of the ancient mine, causing the mine tunnel to collapse again. Lu Ziyi was horrified and hurriedly carried the ancient monument out of the mine tunnel, but he was also seriously injured. However, when he wiped away the dust on the surface of the ancient stele with his hand and saw the content recorded on the ancient stele, his body shook wildly, and his eyes were full of indescribable shock. The content on the ancient tablet shocked him. In human history, maybe there really is an emperor. After listening to Lu Ziyi's description, there was silence in the immortal palace. Everyone's eyes were focused on the ancient monument behind Lu Ziyi. What is recorded on the ancient monument? To make Lu Ziyi lose his composure? The supreme leader of Tianshu Holy Land immediately took action and photographed the ancient stele in front of him. For a moment, everyone's eyes were all focused on the ancient monument. The ancient stele is simple, with the breath of eternal vicissitudes flowing on it. And on the stele, a pattern is outlined with simple yet vigorous strokes. In the center of the pattern is a terrifying creature with 8 arms and 3 heads. This creature is surrounded by a bright divine ring, like a god. In a daze, everyone seemed to be able to see that a long time ago, a terrifying creature looked up to the sky and roared, looking down at the world. With a roar, even the stars in the sky fell, and the earth was shaking. In other places in the picture, there are corpses everywhere, which are suspected to have been killed by this creature. They are densely packed and bleeding like rivers. This terrifying creature stood in the center of thousands of corpses, like a peerless demon lord emerging from hell. However, such a terrifying creature was kneeling on the ground, trembling and kowtowing to a coffin beside it. The coffin is simple, made of unknown materials. It floats in the void and exudes an incomparable brilliance. On the ground, the blood flowing out from the corpses of thousands of creatures gathered in the center and flowed into this coffin, which was mysterious and alluring. It seems to contain a peerless spirit. Even if it is just a pattern engraved on an ancient stele, it still makes people feel frightened. Such a powerful being is kowtowing to an ancient coffin and killing thousands of creatures. Is it because he wants to resurrect the being buried in the ancient coffin? The breath of the gods. The supreme headmaster of the celestial god sect looked at the ancient stele, his expression moved, and there was even a hint of joy in his eyes. Because on this coffin engraved with patterns, he felt a trace of aura like a god. The supreme god. This is, however, the foundation of the Tiantian sect, is the supreme being that the Tiantian sect believes in and worships. For a moment, the supreme leader of the Tiantian sect even had the urge to kneel down and kowtow to this coffin. But the next moment, the supreme leader of the heavenly god sect stopped trying to kneel down, and his face instantly turned pale. His eyes were full of shock, as if he had seen something unbelievable. The ancient monument seemed to have spirit. The picture changes, and another picture appears on it. On this picture, there is a strong human race shrouded in endless aura descending from the sky. He is standing on the clouds, with thousands of auspicious colors around his body, and there are many visions, and there is a kind of supremacy. The aura of the human race filled the air, and it was impossible to see through his appearance. Beside him, there was an ancient word emperor engraved on it, as if to indicate the identity of this powerful human being. The ancient emperor. On top of his head, there was an ancient bell rising and falling, with thousands of black and yellow auras hanging down. He took action, stood up in the sky, and pressed a palm down on the terrifying existence as powerful as the devil below and the ancient coffin beside him. A simple style of writing may not be able to, it is impossible to reproduce the real scene, but it outlines a little bit of the soul, and vividly expresses the supreme power of the human emperor. It is difficult to describe what kind of momentum it is. With the palm press, the stars in the sky are rustling. Shaking, the boundless earth was trembling, and thousands of miles of rivers and mountains were shattered in an instant. The terrifying devil-like creature wanted to resist, but was unable to even stand up. It was firmly suppressed by the power of this palm and knelt down. On the ground, unable to move. A palm as white as jade fell from the 9 heavens. It seemed to contain a mighty force that transcended heaven and earth. It was impossible to resist, destroying everything. Creatures as terrifying as the devil were swept away by the aftermath of this palm. Turned into ashes. Even the coffin that he was protecting beside him, which was suspected to contain a peerless god, was also wiped out. With just one palm, it wiped out everything and suppressed everything. What a demon king, such terrifying creatures! What coffins were suspected of being buried with peerless gods? They were all unsightly, turned into fly ash, and completely wiped out from the world. The book will be on the shelves in a few days. I will try to update it 5-6 times a day these days to make it easier for everyone to read. I also implore readers who have flowers and votes in their hands to vote for Guanyun. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 44. A supreme being of the human race descended from the sky and struck out with one palm to suppress the turmoil in the world and restore peace to the world. This is a kind of supreme power, far beyond the imagination of mortals. In particular, there is an inscription with the word emperor on the side of this powerful human race, which makes people even more imaginative. Is this supreme human being the legendary ancient emperor? The supreme headmaster of the celestial sect, his face alternated between green and white, and his breath fluctuated even more. Just now, he felt the breath of the gods believed in by the Tiantian sect in the murals, and he was so excited that he wanted to worship. But now, he was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. Because the existence that was suspected to be a peerless god did not even have a chance to step out of the coffin before it was swept into flying ash by the powerful human race who was suspected to be the ancient emperor, and completely dissipated in the world. This is equivalent to denying the foundation of the Tenjin religion. The gods they worshipped and admired were so fragile and vulnerable in front of the real strong men of the human race. Several other supreme leaders from various forces in the human race were shocked and glanced at the supreme leader of the celestial sect, looking a little strange. Doesn't your celestial god sect not respect the strong men of the human race, but only believe in and worship those illusory gods? History is now unfolding before our eyes. The so-called alien gods are nothing at all. They are wiped out by the powerful human race with one palm. You have received shocking points at 13,554 from Gu Chongshen. You have received a shocking number of points at 14,451 from Xiaoju's Hang. You have received at 3455 shocking points from Gu Weishan. You have received a shocking at 4,322 points from Li Ziming. You gain from. Shock points flooded the screen crazily. The contents on the ancient stele were revealed to the world, shocking everyone in an instant. Qin Mu's shock points gains skyrocketed. The supreme headmaster of the celestial god sect looked pale, and before the giant black tiger could speak, he took the lead and said, "Haha, I don't believe in the traces of the ancient emperor. All of this is fake, it is still the trap set by the dying old quasi-emperor of the human race before the transformation." The supreme leader of the celestial god sect cannot believe it, and does not want to believe it. The gods that their sect worships and believes in can actually be destroyed by the strongest human race. This is equivalent to shaking the establishment of their section fundamentally. If it is true, it will have unimaginable bad effects. Therefore, if he wants to stand up and refute, he must also deny everything. Whether things are as you said, you just need to verify it. A supreme headmaster said with a faint voice, taking the ancient stele in front of him, running his fingers across the corner of the ancient stele, and taking off a wisp of dust on the surface of the ancient stele. At our level, we only need to take a small part of the material of this ancient monument to roughly determine the year it belongs to. If this ancient stele was formed in the recent past, everything will be as the supreme leader of the celestial god sect said. If this ancient stele is really dozens or even millions of years old, then there is nothing to question. The ancient history only lasts a few 100,000 years, and the even longer history is almost blank. However, all races in the world have never stopped digging into ancient history. From time to time, prehistoric objects are unearthed from the dust of history. Come out. In order to determine the historical period to which these prehistoric objects belong, each tribe has its own set of identification methods. By detecting the material of these prehistoric objects, the historical scope to which they belong can be roughly determined. If it is this ancient stele, if it is really formed in the past 1,000 years, then everything may really be as the supreme leader of the celestial sect said. Everything that happened in the eastern wasteland these days was just a plot laid by an old quasi-emperor of the human race who was dying. But if this ancient monument was formed hundreds of thousands or even millions of years ago, then all rumors will be self-defeating. It is enough to prove that there is really an emperor in the history of the human race, and it is not a lie. The six sects supreme, each took a wisp of dust from the ancient stele and closed their eyes to explore. And many eyes in the immortal palace also focused on the six people. Everyone held their breath, wanting to know the exploration as soon as possible the result. Qin Mu looked at all this with a smile, without the slightest nervousness. The items exchanged through the system were genuine antiques from the inside out. Naturally, he was not afraid of being probed by these people. A moment passed. God, the expression of the Supreme Master's master changed, his eyes were full of disbelief, and the aura in his body fluctuated even more. The other 5 Supreme Masters all showed joy on their faces, and the shock and joy in their eyes could not be concealed at all costs. "I can't help it. Even though none of the 6 supreme leaders spoke at this moment, through the expressions on their faces, everyone seemed to already know the final answer. The history of this ancient monument is actually a million years old. It's not fake, it has millions of years of history, it's genuine. Haha, the ancient stele is true. It can be seen that everything is not as the leader of the Tiantian sect said, but that our human race really had such a history. Are the peerless empress, the great holy body, and the emperor engraved on this ancient stele all the supreme beings of our human race? I'm looking forward to it and want to see more. The remaining 5 supreme leaders of the human race were communicating with each other and looked happy. However, the leader of the celestial sect had a bleak look on his face and his waist was stooped, as if he had aged thousands of years in an instant. It is easy to verify that the ancient stele is authentic. It means breaking his illusion. Everything is not controlled by a quasi-emperor, but real history. Walk. Go to the place where the sacred mountain is, maybe there really are traces of the supreme emperor of our clan there. The supreme headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land spoke, unable to hide the expectation and hope in his tone. The other 4 supreme headmasters also nodded, their hearts also filled with hope and expectation. After all, the Empress and the Dachan holy body had manifested before. They have never really seen it. Now, they finally have the opportunity to witness history and uncover a dusty corner of ancient times. How can this not make them feel excited? The 5 human race supreme masters moved and decided to set off. Before leaving at that time, they did not forget to take away the monks who belonged to their own forces. Since they were going to see the relics of the ancient emperor of the human race, they simply took these juniors with them so that they could witness everything and cheer up. All parties involved, the forces set off quickly and flew out of the holy city. In the center of the holy city, only the ugly-looking headmaster of the celestial sect and the black giant tiger were left. Especially the black giant tiger, it felt like it was being subjected to boundless attacks. Insulting. He just arrived here, domineering and arrogant, attracting everyone's attention. But now, all the human races seem to ignore him and treat him as nothing. Even if he has the royal decree on his head, no one pays attention to him. This is simply an indescribable feeling. The humiliation. Roar. The human race dares to despise me so much. I want to see what your so-called ancient emperor is capable of. He dares to try to rival the ancient emperor. The black tiger roared angrily, and left with the royal decree above its head. It also wanted to go to the sacred mountain, to witness everything with many human races, so as to decide the next step. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 45. Master, what should we do? Seeing that the 5 forces of the human race, and even the giant black tiger of the ancient race, had left, Gu Weishan was dumbfounded. He looked at the gloomy-faced leader of the celestial sect, swallowed his saliva, and asked cautiously. We, too, go with them. The headmaster of the celestial god sect had a gloomy voice. If someone engraves the word emperor, does that mean he is an emperor? Moreover, it is still unclear whether the so-called ancient emperor can rival the ancient emperor. I don't believe that in hundreds of thousands of years of ancient history, the human race has never given birth to an ancient emperor, even if it goes back to even longer history, it's the same. The voice of the leader of the Tianshan sect is as strong as iron, as if he is stabilizing his Taoist heart. The teachings of the Tianshan sect, in addition to respecting the illusory extraterrestrial gods, believe that the human race cannot give birth to the ultimate existence, and must marry with the ancient tribe to confuse the blood of the human race. It is possible for the existence of the extreme to be born. If millions of years ago, the human race really gave birth to the existence of the extreme, then the foundation of the Tianshan sect will be completely denied. By then, everyone in the world will know that the human race can be born emperor, who will join the celestial god sect. I am afraid that even the current celestial God sect believers will be shaken. By then, without the need for others to take action, I am afraid that it will not be long before the celestial God sect will completely decline. Naturally, the leader of the celestial God sect does not want to see it until this happens. So he still holds on to the last glimmer of hope. That is, the emperor engraved on this ancient monument may not be able to compete with the ancient emperor. In this way, he still has a chance. The powerful human beings from the six forces, under the leadership of their respective masters, left Shenyang city in a mighty manner and headed towards the place where the sacred mountain is located. At this time, Duan Yunzheng was still cheating outside the city and carrying out his plan to save money. So many strong men came out of the city, which naturally alarmed the entire Shenyang city. Duan Yunzheng also looked up at the sky with a confused look on his face, not knowing what was going on. Infinite Heavenly Lord, what happened? The supreme leader of the human race forces in the six directions, as well as the monks from all directions, did not stay in Shenyang city to discuss matters, but left Shenyang city. Where were they going? Duan Yunzheng was confused. But his heart told him that something big was about to happen. So he didn't care about his deception plan and hurriedly followed. If there are benefits, Master Dao and I might also have a chance to get a share of the pie. After leaving the city, Duan Yunzheng followed the human forces from all directions. However, the further he walked, the more confused he became. When he arrived at the final destination, Duan Yunzheng was even more dumbfounded. This place was familiar to him. Isn't this where he was? Is it the place engraved on the ancient scroll treasure map? Why are all the big bosses from the human race here? Could it be that Bandao's treasure map has been passed on to the supreme leaders of these various forces? Yes. It shouldn't be. With their strength and status, it should be easy to see that the ancient scroll is a fake. Then why did they come here? Duan Yunzheng was confused. Although he was very confident in his fake methods. But he never thought that he could deceive the supreme leader of these forces. Therefore, he only dared to deceive some lowly monks outside the city. But now, what happened that actually attracted the attention of the six human forces? All the supreme leaders are gathered here? There seems to be a powerful being from the ancient clan. Duan Yunzheng is confused. At this moment, he just wants to know one question. That is what happened. This is the place, the location of the cave entrance is at the foot of the sacred mountain. Lu Ziyi opened his mouth and pointed the way for everyone. Soon, the monks from the six major forces gathered at the foot of the sacred mountain, in front of the abandoned and collapsed mine tunnel. Strangely, we have visited this place before, but we have never found any trace of a mine. A supreme leader spoke with a somewhat surprised voice. The place where this sacred mountain is located has majestic mountains and rivers, and it has naturally been explored by the human race. However, no traces of mines have been found near the sacred mountain. Now, but a mine suddenly appeared at the foot of the mountain, which is really strange. There is nothing surprising, maybe the earth dragon turned over and the mountains and rivers shook. Maybe the mine that was originally buried underground appeared again. The other supreme leader spoke to clear up everyone's doubts. Soon, everyone no longer struggled with this issue, but turned their attention to the mine. They wanted to know what was inside this frame. Let me first take a look at what's inside. The leader of the celestial god sect could no longer bear it any longer. He was the first to take action, smashing the boulders in the mine to pieces and creating a path. The other 5 supreme leaders of the human race saw that he was anxious to take action and did not say much. They stood aside, they watched with cold eyes. The boulders were shattered one after another. In the blink of an eye, 100-meter-long passage appeared in front of everyone. Pretending to be a ghost, I want to see what's inside. The headmaster of the celestial god sect snorted coldly, and kept bombarding forward. There was even a glimmer of hope in his heart that no matter what was inside, it would be best if he was blasted to pieces by himself. However, this idea had just arisen. The headmaster of the celestial god sect was struck with a palm, but a biting chill suddenly rose in his heart. He stood upside down with all the hair on his body, and quickly wanted to stop his hand, but it was too late. The aftermath of the palm's power shattered the boulder blocking the road ahead. But at the same time, extremely dazzling and abnormally gorgeous golden light appeared behind the shattered boulders. At the same time, a creepy and terrifying murderous intention swept out from the brilliant golden light. It directly hit the supreme leader of the celestial sect, causing blood to spurt out from his mouth, and he flew backwards. That killing thought seemed to have a spirit, and it was only aimed at the leader of the celestial sect, and did not target others. After blazing, it went out again. At this moment, everyone who was shocked in their hearts did not care about the leader of the Tiantian sect who flew out miserably. Instead, they all cast their eyes into the mine tunnel. In the mine tunnel, the gorgeous golden light suddenly appeared. As the thought of killing disappeared, it gradually faded away, revealing the true appearance of the mine tunnel. It was an ancient stele, standing in the center of the mine tunnel, simple and vast. There was no picture or carving on the ancient stele, only a line of mysterious and ancient words. Words are engraved on it. Every word is like a dragon or a snake, with silver hooks and iron paintings, majestic. I don't know how long it has been, but there is still a trace of majestic divine murderous intention contained in it. At this time, everyone suddenly realized. The ancient stele is simple and there is nothing surprising about it. What just knocked away the leader of the Tiantian sect was not this ancient stele, but the murderous intention attached to the words. But thinking about this, all people's hearts can't help but be extremely shocked. Millions of years ago, there was a living being who left a line of text on this ancient stele. This living being must have participated in creation, so after leaving the words, there was a trace of spiritual thought. The murderous intention was contained in this line of ancient characters. Millions of years later, the supreme leader of the celestial sect accidentally attacked this ancient stele, causing a wisp of Shinto murderous intent attached to the ancient characters to revive and fight back on his own. Only then did the supreme leader of the celestial sect be severely injured. How powerful was this creature? It was just a trace of murderous thoughts left in the ancient characters. It revived after 1,000,000 years and severely injured a Holy Lord-level powerhouse. Such strength is simply unbelievable. What are the words recorded on this ancient tablet? A supreme leader asked. He couldn't help turning his head and no longer looked at the line of ancient characters. Because the murderous intention contained in this line of ancient characters was so terrifying, like rounds of little suns. Staring for a long time made him burst into tears and his eyes stung. As for the other monks, they only dared to glance at it from a distance and did not dare to look at it for a long time. This text seems to be an ancient text passed down by the demon clan. A supreme leader who had extensive research on the art of ancient characters resisted the sting in his eyes and discerned the words on the ancient stele. After a long time, the supreme leader finally identified the content of the text on this ancient monument. And when he truly knew the meaning of this sentence, his whole person was in an indescribable and unparalleled shock. What is recorded on the ancient tablet? Say it quickly. The headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land couldn't help but urge. The eyes of many other human monks, even the eyes of the giant black tiger, were all focused on the supreme headmaster. Everyone was confused. What is recorded on the ancient stele? It is just a line of text, but it has such great magic power that it can make the supreme leader of a human race be so shocked and stunned. The supreme leader was shocked for a long time, and then it was like a dream. As if he was awake, he spoke slowly, with a hint of indescribable shock in his tone. It would be better to meet the ancient emperor of Jidao than to meet Wuxi of the human race. The quasi-emperor of the demon clan, Ye Yueshan. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 46. The words of this supreme leader shocked everyone who heard them. Savoring it carefully, you fell into an unprecedented shock. The words left by a former quasi-emperor of the demon clan. It would be better to meet the ancient emperor of Jidao than to meet Wuxi of the human race. Between the lines, there is a complex and unspeakable mood. Even if there are millions of years apart, everyone seems to be able to understand the mood of this ancient emperor of the demon clan when he left these ancient words. At this moment, no one doubts the authenticity of this quasi-emperor of the demon clan. Because this line of writing is so extraordinary. After a million years, it manifested itself. It was just a ray of divine murderous intention hidden between the lines that revived, and it severely damaged a Holy Lord-level powerhouse. To be able to leave behind such ancient characters must be an invincible existence that shocks the heavens and the earth, and is absolutely extraordinary. Moreover, this font is written in ancient demon script. Besides, if one's cultivation has reached the level of the master who wrote this ancient calligraphy, would he lie about this kind of thing? This is meaningless and will only ruin his reputation. Such a strong person would probably disdain to do this. But the content of this line he left is so amazing that it is almost unimaginable. Would you rather meet the ancient emperor than meet this powerful human being named Wuxi? Could it be said that this quasi-emperor of the demon clan thinks that this powerful man named Wuxi is stronger than the ancient emperor in the extreme realm? Some people can't help but have this thought in their minds, and their hearts can't help but beat wildly and their blood boils. What kind of existence is the ancient emperor? That is a supreme honorific and an incomparable symbol. When they were alive, they ruled over the 9 heavens and 10 lands, spanning the 6 regions and 8 wastelands. After they pass away, they will always be remembered by all spirits, and the emperor's name will be known throughout the ages. But now, a demon clan quasi-emperor says that even if he meets the ancient emperor, he never wants to meet this powerful human race named Wuxi. In other words, in the eyes of Yao Yuzhong, the quasi-emperor of the Yao clan. Is this powerful human being named Wuxi even stronger than the supreme ancient emperor? The meaning behind this sentence is so terrifying and dreamy that it is unbelievable and unbelievable. It's incredible, unimaginable. You have received shocking points at 16,154 from Gu Chongshen. You have received a shock of add 951 points from Li Ziming. You have received shocking points at 3,155 from Qin Changxiu. You have received add 4342 shocking points from Huo Yun's Hang. You gain from 100,000, 200,000. In a short period of time, the shocking effect of the contents on this ancient tablet on everyone has provided Qin Mu with more than 300,000 shock points, and it is still rising. Qin Mu stood aside, and the shock points rose crazily, even far exceeding the rate of increase when everyone discovered the first ancient monument. It was extremely fast and crazy. Nothing else, because the content recorded on the second ancient tablet is really unimaginable. A demon clan quasi-emperor personally admitted that the human race has no beginning and is stronger than the legendary ancient emperor. If this kind of news spreads, it will definitely shock the world. No beginning, no beginning. Is it the human emperor depicted on the first picture? The old headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land was shocked for a long time, and then he deduced. In the first picture, a strong human race descended from the sky, destroying everything, suppressing the chaos of the gods with one hand, and engraved with the word emperor beside him. If he is Wu at the beginning, everything makes sense. 2 ancient tablets, located in the same mine tunnel. It should be him, Wuxi, Wuxi Emperor. The Great Emperor. Is this the name of our human race, the godless one? This must be the case. If this matter is true, it will definitely shake the world forever. Beginningless. The great emperor. From all the human race forces, there were incomprehensible sounds that were shocking and mixed with excitement and joy. Wuxi, Wuxi Emperor, does the human race really have such an existence? I don't believe it, I don't believe it. The leader of the celestial god sect roared. His clothes were stained with blood and he fell into the dust, looking extremely miserable. He couldn't believe that there really was an ancient emperor in human history. But everything in front of him told him that it was all true and not false. The multiple blows caused the eyes of the headmaster of the Tianchen sect to turn black and he almost fainted on the spot. On the other side, the giant black tiger was not much better. The arrogant and domineering attitude before was gone, and the tail that was raised high was now drooping. Even the scroll of royal decree floating above its head was frightened by the aura of this demon clan's quasi-emperor, and its light dimmed slightly. However, even though he kept a low profile, this giant black tiger still spoke harshly. Even if this ancient monument is really left by a quasi-emperor of the demon clan in the past, the content is too ridiculous. Who is the Taigo Emperor? Rule the world and ask about the existence of the eternal invincible hand. This so-called human race has no beginning, no matter how strong it is, so what? Not mentioning being on par with the ancient emperor, but actually trying to stand on the emperor's head. Ridiculous. This is simply impossible. In the heart of this giant black tiger, the ancient emperor is the supreme being and is synonymous with invincibility. If there is an existence in the human race that can rival the ancient emperor, it will not be able to accept it. Now it is not about being on par with each other, but directly confronting him. How can it believe that it can suppress the ancient emperor? How can it accept it? Not only this giant black tiger, but also many human races present are also a little uneasy. After all, the reputation of the ancient emperor has been praised by all the spirits in the world for a long time, which is enough to suppress it forever. If there was an ancient emperor named Wuxi in the history of the human race, who could stand shoulder to shoulder with the ancient emperor and be on the same level as the extreme Dao realm, everyone would still understand. But now, in the description of the quasi-emperor of the demon clan, Yao Yu's Hung, the great emperor Wuxi was even stronger than the ancient emperor, which made everyone a little unbelievable. If this ancient monument was the one in the past naturally, no one dared to have such a question when it was left by the Taigo emperor. But now, the ancient monument was left by a demon clan quasi-emperor. Perhaps he was just defeated by the Emperor Wuxi in the past and witnessed the power of the Emperor Wuxi, so he had this slightly exaggerated sigh. No need to guess, go inside and find out, everything will naturally come to light. The old master of Tianshu Holy Land waved his hand and took the lead in leading the monks of Tianshu Holy Land into the mine tunnel and walked towards the depths of the ancient mine. The other supreme masters looked at each other and also summoned their respective. The powerful monks followed closely and entered the ancient cave. The old headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land was right. Go in and have a closer look, and everything will naturally come to light. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 47. Let's go in too. I won't be willing not to witness all this. The supreme leader of the celestial god sect stood up staggeringly. The blood on his body was still flowing, and his tone was full of reluctance. He knew that if what happened today were to spread throughout the eastern wasteland, the celestial god sect would be finished. There was an ancient emperor in the extreme realm in the history of the human race. The peerless god was suppressed by the human emperor with one palm. These two pieces of news alone can completely collapse the foundation of the celestial sect. The Gyuwei god standing aside has no words at this moment. He could see the look of being in the immortal palace, with everything under control. Like the leader of the Tianshen sect, he was also extremely depressed and desolate. When the monks from the six forces, even the giant black tiger, after following into the ancient mine, a sneaky figure appeared from a distance. Infinite Heavenly Lord, damn it, it's impossible, this is impossible. Duan Yunzhong looked at the hole that was spitting out auspicious light, his eyes were dull and he muttered to himself. Everything that just happened was seen by him. After knowing the real result, Duan Yunzhong was really dumbfounded. What's the situation? What the hell? That ancient scroll treasure map was drawn blindly by me. I never thought that there would be traces left by the ancient emperor here. Damn it, Master Dao, what have I done? Duan Yunzhong wailed, his fat face twitching, and he felt that every piece of flesh on his body was in pain. He never thought that there would be a big secret in this sacred mountain. The remains of the ancient emperor. This is much more precious and important than the tombs of ancient ancestors and kings. How could I be so blind that I didn't know to investigate in advance and draw a treasure map? Duan Yunzhong was extremely upset. Now that it's better, the 6 forces of the human race have gathered together, and he could have enjoyed the secret of this ruins alone. I'm afraid it's hard to even drink soup now. However, although he felt extremely uncomfortable and regretful, Duan Yunzhong still followed and walked into the ancient cave. No matter what, even if I can get some benefits, even if it's just a sip of soup, that's fine. The entrance to the ancient cave. He saw Duan Yunzheng's fat face twitching, his eyebrows and eyes squeezed together, with an expression of extreme pain. Qin Mu couldn't help laughing. It's useless for Duan Yunzhong to regret it. The secret realm was set up by me just now. Where did this guy find it before? Even if he did come early, he was destined to find nothing. However, Qin Mu naturally had no intention of explaining to the fat Taoist priest, but followed him into the ancient mine. Just let this guy be upset, just think of it as his punishment for deceiving others about origin stones outside the city. In the ancient mine, the supreme leader of all the human clan's forces released his aura and protected the monks of his own forces. Although the ancient monument left by the quasi-emperor of the demon clan contained a ray of murderous intent, it was usually very restrained and would not explode as long as no action was taken against it. So everyone carefully walked around the ancient monument and walked deeper into the mine. Inside the ancient mine, it is not cold and dark, but there is a soft brilliance flowing faintly, a peaceful and holy atmosphere, illuminating all directions. Along with it, there are strong spiritual energy that fills the mine tunnel, causing all the monks who smell it to feel shaken. There seems to be a lot of divine energy buried deep in this mine. A human race leader sighed with emotion. He didn't expect that this sacred mountain would be a real treasure. The divine source is contained in this place. Only a small amount of the essence leaked out, which caused the concentration of spiritual energy here to soar. This is enough to prove the quality of the divine source contained here. Hi. Speeding up, there seems to be something carved on the wall of the mine tunnel ahead. An old headmaster's eyes were as bright as a torch, and he couldn't help urging as he looked into the distance. Everyone moved forward and soon discovered the difference. On the rock walls on both sides of the mine tunnel, stone carvings and murals began to appear. The breath of eternal vicissitudes is flowing. It can be seen that the ancients carved here countless thousands of years ago. These stone carvings and murals do not look exquisite, even a bit simple. But every stroke is a silver hook and iron painting. As if it contained a soul, expressing everything vividly, just like the first ancient stele that Lu Ziyi had recited before. Everyone was shocked and couldn't help but look at the ancient stele. And at this sight, everyone they couldn't help but hold their breath. In the first set of stone carvings, there are thousands of sacred mountains in a row, but only one sacred mountain stands in the center. You can see all the small mountains, majestic, surrounded by misty clouds and full of fairyland. And a majestic, black man with hair like a waterfall stood on the top of the mountain with his hands behind his back. Above his head, there was an ancient bell floating there. When he reached the top, he just stood there quietly, but there was a breath of energy that swallowed up the world. The invincible aura that dominates the world. It's hard to describe what it feels like. It's just a silhouette carved on the stone wall by the ancients, but it makes all the creatures who see the stone wall feel an unparalleled sense of awe in their hearts. Love. The stone carvings are old, and even some places have fallen off, and dust is falling. But the back carved in the center of the stone wall seems to coexist with heaven and earth. He stood on the top of the mountain, but in a trance. Everyone, it seems that I saw an ancient emperor who was supreme and overthrown the invincible hand of all ages. He stood in the starry sky and trampled all the ways under his feet. He stood with his hands behind his back. Standing on the top of 10,000 feet, and the height was not cold. That majestic force, the majestic back, revealed an invincible spirit, and also contained a kind of lonely thoughts. At this moment, everyone present seemed to realize the meaning of that kind of thoughts. Looking beyond the past. The ancients are not seen in the past, and the future is no one is coming. Only the independent cloud is left. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 48. There is no one before, no one will come after, only the independent clouds remain. This is an invincible loneliness. Regardless of the past and present, looking through the ages, you can't even find a worthy opponent. You are left alone, walking alone on the vast immortal road, with only a back that is gradually moving away. Just one image engraving vividly demonstrates the mystery and power of the Wuxi Emperor. Everyone held their breath, with a deep sense of awe in their hearts. Is this the supreme elegance of the ancient emperor? The old headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land looked at the back figure on the stone carving, his old voice full of awe. The ancient emperor of my human race is unparalleled in his grace, no less than the ancient emperor. A saintess said to herself, with a strange light rising in her eyes. In today's world, all spirits only respect the ancient emperor. Although the human race also looks up to and awes the ancient emperor. But after all, he was born among all the ancient emperors. The emperor of the human race is not a human race. There may be more fear, but not much respect. But now, there is finally a true and authentic ancient emperor of the human race, appearing in the annals of the human race. Even if, those days and now they are separated by a long time. Even though his fame has never been praised in the world before. But this does not affect the fact that everyone has a deep respect for this great emperor of the human race named Wuxi. All this is just because, this great emperor, belongs to the human race. It is the ancestor of the human race. With deep reverence, everyone looked at the remaining figures. They wanted to see more and know more about this statue named Wuxi. Deeds related to the ancient emperor. In the second mural, there are two figures standing side by side, but they are both shrouded in chaotic mist and hazy, making it difficult to see through the two figures. But they can be distinguished. They are a man and a woman. The man is tall and tall, with unparalleled heroic appearance. The woman has immortal muscles and bones, and is unparalleled in elegance. The same thing is that there is a supreme and eternal aura emanating from these two figures. And the eyes of the two figures were full of love and reluctance, looking forward. Where they looked, there was a divine source emitting brilliant light. Among the divine sources, one was not very old. The boy has disheveled black hair and is sealed in the divine source. His eyes are closed tightly, as if he has fallen into a deep sleep. Although this boy is not old, he is born extraordinary, with a flawless body, jade-like skin, and a sense of airiness all over his body. Immortal breath. What does this image mean? Is the man shrouded in the mist of chaos the great Emperor Wuxi? After seeing this engraving, some people were puzzled as to what this ancient mural was trying to express. Moreover, the man surrounded by the aura of chaos in this engraving is slightly different from the one in the previous engraving. The aura of Emperor Wuxi is similar, but he is not the same person. Where is Emperor Wuxi? Why is there no trace of Emperor Wuxi in this picture? Many monks are confused and cannot understand. They do not understand the meaning of this picture engraved here. Is there no beginningless emperor? Maybe not. This painting probably depicts the childhood of Emperor Wuxi. The boy in the abyss may be Emperor Wuxi when he was a child. The old headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land said in a deep voice, with his eyes as bright as a torch, as if he had seen through everything. Emperor Wuxi in his childhood. Many human monks were shocked in their hearts. They all looked at the children in the divine source in the murals. Indeed, this child there is a temperament similar to that of the Emperor Wuxi in the previous mural, and it is probably the same person. However, why was the Emperor Wuxi sealed in the divine source when he was a child? He was sealed in the divine source when he was young. Could it be that the supreme headmaster from Yuhang Holy Land took a breath and seemed to have thought of some possibility? Looking at the confused eyes of everyone, he pointed to the two figures shrouded in the mist of chaos in the mural. The two figures looked at the child in the divine source with extremely gentle and reluctant eyes. They must be the relatives of the child in the divine source. If I am not mistaken, these two are probably the parents of Emperor Wuxi. And throughout the ages, there is only one existence that can be sealed into the divine source at a young age. That is the Taigo Emperor's biological son and daughter. As soon as the headmaster of Yuhang Holy Land finished speaking, there was a sound of gasping for air. The headmaster of Yuhang Holy Land was right. Throughout the ages, who would seal their children when they are young? In the source of the gods. Only the ancient emperor. Why? Because the ancient emperor came to the world and combined with the mark of Tianxin, suppressing all the ways, causing the ultimate road to be blocked. No one can prove the Tao while an ancient emperor is alive. As an ancient emperor, which of his children does not have extraordinary blood and evil talents? The ancient emperor could not bear to have his children cut off from this life, so he chose to seal his blood in the divine source, and be born thousands of years later, and then realize the ultimate realm. If according to from this inference, one of the parents of Emperor Wuxi is likely to be a supreme being in the realm of the extreme. One sect and two emperors. No, maybe it's not just the two emperors of the same school. The two figures shrouded in the mist of chaos also have a hint of the most powerful aura, and it's impossible to tell who is higher and who is lower. It shows that in the opinion of the owner who left this stone carving, the parents of Emperor Wuxi should have equally contributed to the creation and had a lifetime of merit. The supreme leader of the Yuhang Holy Land frowned. He seemed to have thought of something, and added to the conclusion he had reached before. Both parents are the most powerful beings in the Ji-Dao realm. Is this possible? Listening to the Yuhang Holy Body Palm, the teacher's inference, everyone present seemed to be listening to a myth. It is difficult to tolerate two emperors in one life. When he is alive, he is dead, and when he is dead, he is alive. This is an iron law since ancient times and cannot be broken. How can two emperors coexist in one life? The old headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land murmured to himself, frowning, as if he felt that the inference drawn by the headmaster of Yuhang Holy Land was somewhat incorrect. Could it be that among the parents of Emperor Wuxi, one was the ancient emperor and the other as a quasi-emperor? Something is not right. The old headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land thought hard and always felt that he seemed to have missed something. He stared at the carvings on the wall. The two lines were shrouded in the mist of chaos. Figure, trying to find the part in my mind that I have missed. Finally, the eyes of the old headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land passed over that majestic and burly figure. When he saw the surface of the other person's body, there seemed to be a layer of faint golden light lingering and flickering. A thought suddenly flashed through his mind like a bolt from the blue. He seems to already know. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 49. Haha. One sect and two emperors. Are both parents supreme? Human race, do you want me to laugh out loud? The giant black tiger sneered, dismissing the conclusion reached by the leader of the Yuhang Holy Land. One sect and two emperors are enough to be unbelievable. Both parents are the supreme Taoist? How is it possible? There can only be one Taku in a lifetime. Emperor. This is an iron rule. No matter how brilliant the world is, it can only accommodate one ancient emperor to attain enlightenment. After the ancient emperor attains enlightenment, the road will be closed to block those who come after you. No matter how talented you are, unable to break this dead end, can only drink in sorrow and sit in the years. Therefore, the coexistence of two emperors is simply impossible. I see. I see. Not two emperors coexist. However, just as the giant black tiger roared, the headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land immediately spoke, with a hint of trembling in his voice. Not all of the parents of Emperor Wuxi were emperors. The mother of Emperor Wuxi should reach the pinnacle of cultivation and become the great emperor of ancient times. And the father of Emperor Wuxi was not an emperor, maybe, he was the legendary Dachan Holy Body. The Great Holy Body. This was the speculation of the old headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land. The thought that lingered in his mind just now was related to the Great Holy Body. Just now, when he saw the burly figure in the engraving, when the faint golden light contained in it suddenly occurred to the old headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land, he suddenly remembered the Dachan Holy Body that shocked the eastern wasteland a few days ago. According to legend, the human race's holy body is naturally unique, with infinite divine power, and its blood is even more powerful. It is a brilliant golden color. It is said that the holy body has unparalleled combat power. After it is completed, it can be called the ancient emperor of Banji Dao. It is said that this bloodline is so heaven-defying, so in ancient history, the owner of the holy body bloodline can only achieve great success. But he was unable to prove that he would become an emperor. One after another, the speculations perfectly fit with the performance of the man on the stone carvings. Perhaps, the father of the Wuxi emperor was a great saint of the human race. And his mother, he is a great emperor of the human race who dominates the extreme realm. Two beings with the same achievements in the world and unparalleled combat power. After their union, there was the great Emperor Wuxi. The offspring of the Dachan holy body and a human empress. Yes, that makes sense. A great human emperor. What a stunning talent and beauty that shines through the ages. Who in this world can fall into her eyes? I'm afraid the only one is the great holy body. Incredible. If this is true, then the origin of Emperor Wuxi is simply extremely prominent. His mother was the great emperor of ancient times, and his father was the holy body of great accomplishment. With such a background, how many people can there be if you look through the past and present? Everyone is trembling. The inference of the old headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land makes everyone feel shocked and helpless. If the inference of the old headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land is really true, then the origin of Emperor Wuxi is too terrifying. Oh! It's not one sect with two emperors. It can be called one sect with three emperors. You receive shocking points add 14,352 from Jianwei Tong. You received shocking points add 16,449 from Li Wuming. You receive shocking points add 847 from Luo Juquan. You receive from. Shock points flooded the screen like crazy. Qin Mu, who was standing aside, couldn't help but want to applaud the old headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land. This old head coach is really a master. Just based on the clues and my own imagination, I deduced everything. The most important thing is that the conclusions this guy came to are all correct. If it weren't for the old headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land who guessed the identity of Emperor Wuxi's parents and brought an unparalleled shock to everyone, Qin Mu's shock points would have been much less. He is a master of brainstorming. However, I believe you will not be able to guess the next picture. Qin Mu smiled and shook his head. His eyes were vaguely expectant. He didn't believe these people could guess the engravings that followed. but the shock it brought was by no means inferior to the previous stone wall engravings, and even the effect is even more intense. One sect and three emperors are, after all, just inferences. You must know more before you can draw a conclusion. The old headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land calmed down his mind and quickly looked at the next stone wall carving impatiently. The ancient stone wall carvings seem to have a kind of magic power. The more I see and understand, the more I want to know more truth and more dust-laden history. There is no doubt that each of these histories is of extraordinary significance and vital importance to the human race. However, the old headmaster of Tianshu Holy Land shifted his attention to the next picture. The mood that had just finally calmed down suddenly set off a huge wave again. The shocking feeling in my heart reached its peak in an instant. Not only the old master of Tianshu Holy Land, but also other people who saw this picture could no longer bear the shock in their hearts and couldn't help but exclaimed, "Oh my God! This is... How can this be?" Everyone's tone was full of disbelief. It was as if the record on the stone carving had subverted their understanding. On top of this mural stone carving, there were still two parents of the Emperor Wuxi, as well as the young Emperor Wuxi who was sealed in the divine source. But at this moment, the parents of Emperor Wuxi were worshipping somewhere, with expressions of reverence, and pushed the divine source sealed with Emperor Wuxi here. It looks like he is entrusting the Emperor Wuxi to a certain being. However, in the stone carvings and murals, the place is empty and there is nothing. However, the emotions of Emperor Wuxi's parents are portrayed so sincerely, as if someone really exists in that blank space. But, what existence in this world can withstand the worship of an ancient emperor and the great holy body? It is unimaginable and incomprehensible. The Yuhang Holy Land, the headmaster's eyes were shining, and he was staring at the stone carving where the parents of Emperor Wuxi worshipped, as if he wanted to see through it completely. The person who left this carving must be a human race. And looking at the mural in front, the owner of this mural should be in awe of the human emperor. In this case, why would he paint and carve a scene of a human female emperor and a great saint worshipping together? There is only one possibility. This is it did happen. The parents of the Emperor Wuxi were indeed entrusting the young Emperor Wuxi, who was sealed in the divine source, to a certain existence. And it seems that the parents of the Emperor Wuxi should have great respect for this mysterious existence. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 50. The great emperor of ancient times stood at the pinnacle of the extreme realm, looked down upon him for eternity and was invincible, and was worshipped and believed by all beings in the world. Who in the world can be worshipped by such a supreme being? Moreover, the worshippers are not only an ancient emperor, but also a great saint who can rival the emperor. This is even more amazing. I can't believe it. Is this stone carving real? I doubt. The ancient emperor was supreme, how could he worship others? All this is probably just the imagination of the person who painted and carved it, and it is not true. Many human monks denied it, unable to believe that all this was true. Ahem, haha. Don't you think that all this is true, and that the ancient emperor can stand shoulder to shoulder with the ancient emperor? What to say now? I have never heard that the ancient emperor paid homage to someone. All of this is fake, all fake, ha ha ha. The leader of the celestial god sect laughed, and even continued to cough up blood. But his eyes were shining. The frustration and discouragement just now disappeared, and the flame called hope rose again in his eyes. The situation in front of him, it couldn't be better for him. If these stone carvings and murals are admitted to be true, it is to admit that the ancient emperor and the Dachan holy body of the human race once worshipped a certain creature. This will definitely deal a blow to the reputation of the ancient emperor and the Dachan holy body. It is huge. Because the one who can stand shoulder to shoulder with the ancient emperor must be the most powerful and the only being in heaven and earth. How could such a being worship others? It is impossible. Therefore, we can only draw one conclusion, that is the so-called ancient emperor and the great saint are not as good as the ancient emperor. But if everyone admits that these stone carvings and murals are fake, that would be better. Everything is an illusion, and the so-called human emperor and the great saint are also fictitious. There is no better situation than this. Everyone was silent, not knowing how to refute. Because the content engraved on this stone mural was so shocking that it was simply beyond everyone's understanding. However, when everyone was silent, the supreme leader of Yuhang holy body let out a loud roar. I see it, I see it. His eyes were shining, like two suns, staring at the direction in the mural where the ancient emperor and the Dachan holy body were worshipping together. Under his long gaze, he seemed to see something, discovered something. That blank space, the land, is not blank. There are very shallow veins attached to it, so shallow that it can't even be seen clearly, and it looks like it will be rubbed off from the stone carvings soon. It is a very faint figure. It is completely invisible from his appearance. He could only barely identify the owner of this figure, who seemed to be a human race. When the headmaster of Yuhang Holy Land saw this figure, he couldn't help but trembled all over. It was an indescribable feeling. Yuhang, the headmaster of the Holy Land, wanted to imprint the image of this figure firmly in his mind. But when he looked at it, it seemed as if he had experienced tens of millions of years. The figure continued to become virtual in his mind. It faded away, as if he wanted to completely erase this memory from his mind. One glance, 10,000 years. It felt like the person who painted the murals had painted everything. But that statue, the creature worshipped by the ancient emperor and the Dachan holy body, his strength and realm have completely exceeded the understanding of all living beings. He has reached an unimaginable and indescribable realm. It is difficult to leave his shape everywhere in the world. Its shadow. Draw it on a scroll, and the scroll will become blank. Draw it and carve it on a stone wall, and the stone wall will be smoothed. His existence is completely unbearable, unimaginable, and unimaginable by the minds of all sentient beings. Perhaps, only beings like the ancient emperor are qualified to know his existence. Unthinkable, unimaginable, unspeakable. He walked in the long river of time and experienced countless changes and great changes in the world. In the vast world, there are miracles he left and manifested everywhere, but he has always been hidden behind the scenes, free from the world, sitting back and watching the changes in the world and the vast sea. Everywhere, yet everywhere. This was the only thought that emerged in the heart of the supreme leader of Yuhang Holy Land after seeing this faint and almost disappearing figure. He yelled because he was afraid that he would forget everything later, so he reminded others. Sure enough, after hearing the roar of the supreme master of the Yuhang Holy Land, many people, like him, focused their eyes on the blank space in the stone murals, staring intently, hoping to see some clues. Eventually, they saw it too. The figure disappeared in a flash, an illusory figure that was almost difficult to find. The figure was engraved in everyone's minds, but it was quickly disappearing. In a completely unimaginable way, the memory related to this figure was erased from their minds. In the end, only a faint thought remained. An existence beyond the ancient emperor. An unimaginable, incredible existence. Ineffable existence. Everyone was shocked. The only memory left in their minds seemed to be telling them. In the face of such existences, it is not incomprehensible for the ancient emperor to worship together with the Dachan holy body. Because, even if it were the ancient emperor who came here, the final result would be the same.